Money is very important. Money is kind of ruling this world, and we can all make an impact, even with not a lot of savings. Investors, they want to invest into climate tech companies. So they are asking for that. They want to place this money somewhere. I'm very proud of saying that, I invest into carbon equity.
Orane Barthes works with JPMorgan Chase, an investment bank, and particularly has worked a lot on ESG and sustainability projects. Originally from France, currently living in Amsterdam. Welcome, Orane. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline, for welcoming me here today.
Orane, you started your career in investment banking. You told me you come from a family of doctors. Why did you choose finance as your route?
So I come from a family of doctors, indeed. And I was lucky enough that my parents were really pushing me to explore different things. And indeed, growing up, I was always fascinated by reading the newspaper, reading about companies, reading about also big banks, financing the world, all these kind of topics. And I was lucky enough to join a business school, where I was actually following different courses, and the financial part was the one that really interested me most. Started to do some internship, and then followed up with meeting some people that worked in investment banking, and then joined JPMorgan in London.
I love that you say that you read the news and basically understood that money, finance, sort of the lifeblood of the economy, right? Yes. That's also what I find very interesting about finance, and the reason why when we started carbon equity and thinking about how can we have an impact on the world, we really started with that money makes the world go round. And so being in finance, you actually get to steer or design the shape of our future.
Yes, indeed. And I have to say that money is very powerful. Yeah. And it comes from working at a bank, from your own saving. You can really have a lot of impacts from very small investments, from what you say to your own personal bank, actually. What you say to your banker, you want to place your money somewhere. This is very powerful.
At JPMorgan, the CEO, Jamie Dimon, expressed pretty ambitious climate goals. You also have worked on ESG and sustainability type projects. Could you briefly talk about the type of projects, type of ESG and sustainability projects that you were doing within the bank, what the impact was of those type of projects?
Yes. So I was working in the financing team of JPMorgan for a big institution and also for a smaller institution. And basically what we were doing is helping companies set up frameworks in order for them to invest into sustainable projects, and also achieve some type of targets in terms of their projects as well, in the way they were working out and everything.
Could you give me an example of such a project?
Yes, of course. So, for instance, I was working for this bank, Société Générale, which was doing this financing of solar farm in Taiwan. And they needed to raise 500 million for that purpose. And basically what we did with them is to set up the framework, set up how long it would take to potentially achieve the construction of this solar farm. And then according to that, go to the market it with investors and raise those 500 million.
Interesting. And why would you say was ESG or is ESG important for the bank?
So ESG is very important for the bank today because this is the hot topic of the moment, right? I can tell you that every person looking for financing wants to see what they can do inside their company to set up targets, to also finance some projects, to have something which is ESG friendly, let's say. And that is a great thing, but also it's a great thing because people which has the money, exactly like you were telling earlier, that's what they want. They basically want to be investing into projects which are sustainable. They want to finance companies which have certain goals. They don't want anymore a bit of a blah, 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 where you have companies which don't really have a real substance and a real framework of what they want to do for the planet.
Indeed. JPMorgan is one of the biggest asset managers in the world. They have huge private equity holdings. Typically, these private equity funds are not accessible for private individuals. Now through carbon equity, they are. Had you already been thinking about investing in venture capital and private equity, or was there another reason to start investing through carbon equity?
I didn't think about it before because I didn't think it was really possible. And I have to say that what you're doing, what you set up, is very incredible. But because from my perspective, I always thought, like we were talking about, like that money is really the power. And I think that most of people would recognize themselves into me, which is like, okay, I don't have a lot of saving, but I want to place it right. And I want to place it also in something concrete. And when I first heard about carbon equity through a friend, I was very impressed how this all concrete was and how close you could be to your money and into what you are investing as a personal investor. Because I've seen that and I enjoyed it in my work at JPMorgan, like being able to finance things that are very concrete, businesses. But then when you're investing into carbon equity today, you invest basically into venture capital or private equity funds with a real company behind, with real project behind. So you can really see it, which I think is very powerful.
So you can see sort of the real world impact of your capital, which is directly funding these startup companies.
Exactly. And that's what I loved. And on top of it, like I have to say, it became even more concrete when I attended one of carbon equity events this summer, which was like just a drink with where we could attend to one of your panel with the venture capital managers, which were talking about ESG in a real concrete way again. And for instance, I invested into a fund in March this year, and one of my portfolio company was also attending this event, and it was great because it was actually a company which is doing this beyond the meat kind of type of
they make chicken, fermentation
exactly.
Chicken,
yes, but also in a health way, which is good for the human. Trust me, I've told my whole family about it because my parents became vegetarian 2 years ago, which is great. And to be honest, they always has been a bit concerned about those products because from a health perspective, I love to see all those changes.
Yeah. Can you take us a little bit through your personal investment journey? Because at some point you have a bit of savings and starting to think about allocating. But then, I mean, the world is your oyster. There are many things that you could do with your money. How have you been thinking about how you want to allocate your savings and what alternatives have you considered?
Yeah. So I think that, for instance, from my perspective, like I only invested before carbon equity into like life insurance, very basic product. And I think most of French people, for instance, like me, do the same, I have to say, and because I read the news about it, and this is a disaster. But it's true, like, you know, it's like kind of the safest instrument you can invest in. But at the end, I know I'm never going to really touch this money. So I knew when I heard about carbon equity, I was like, okay, this is the opportunity to do the step because I believe in the projects. I know it's also a safe, for me, at least I assess the risk. And I was like, okay, this is the type of fund I really want to invest in because I find it safe from my investor perspective.
And what makes you feel more safe about carbon equity investments than alternatives?
Than others, I think it's just comes back to like the more concrete it is. I know what companies there is behind my portfolio, and I'm confident enough into the choice as well of carbon equity, the due diligence that is made, also because I had the chance to talk to a lot of people working there. You have a lot of due diligence done into investing into proper funds. And this is, again, very powerful because in my day-to-day journey, as a 30-year-old, I don't really have time to do due diligence to look into like all the companies I want to invest in. And I think this makes you invest into a proper company, smaller ones, with less risk, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Then,
And you could also have chosen an ESG fund through JPMorgan, for example. Yes. Why did you opt for carbon equity over, for example, investing in listed stocks on the stock exchange?
I think it's also the fact of like at some point trusting a company into investing and choosing the right companies, because that's a bit the issue I have, at least, is Alors, first of all, actually, as JPMorgan employee, you cannot invest into stocks. So that's also one thing
important
to consider. But on top of it, I think it's just the fact that somebody else that you trust, that have values, and that is doing the work, chooses the company. I think that's very much powerful. And I have to say that I worked with a lot of venture capital and private equity fund as well in the financing space. And I know that their process of investing into companies, all that is very much thought of. So it's not only me making a choice of one company and thinking about, okay, this company is maybe overpriced. There is a risk of loss as well in the stock market, which is huge, which is not, and of course, like every investment is. But I think I made this choice also rationally. Like I want to invest into climate change companies. Like, yeah, that's at least it's really the best solution I found so far.
What was your main motivation to want to invest in climate technology solutions?
My main reason is that we all need to make a change.